Hello and welcome to the short Vort on Parshas Acharei Mos from Chamishi to Shishi and on Shabbos Hagadol. We'll start off with Chamishi, Perek Yudches, Pasuk Beis. So it says in the Pasuk that you should not act like the Egyptians, that you dwell there, Sheyashavtem Sham, and you should not act like the Canaanites, that you will act there. So Rashi says that it teaches us that the worst places were with the Egyptians and with the Canaanites, the place where the Jews actually were. And in fact, he says that the Jews were grumma, that they caused the bad action and the bad behavior of the Egyptians. So there's a bunch of explanations. I'd like to share three explanations why the Jews would have caused that the Egyptians and Canaanites would be worse. So firstly, the Shemish says that if a Rasha and a tzaddik live together, you're either going to have the cure project that works and the Rasha will become better, or it'll have actually the opposite effect, and therefore the Rasha will want to cut off contact with the tzaddik and will actually behave worse than he would have otherwise. The same thing with the Jews who were Kodesh in Egypt and in Canaan. They had an opposite impact on the Egyptians around them. Another explanation is that since the Jews were Kodesh themselves, they needed to have a test, and the test was to have the Egyptians behave more improperly than they, and be a temptation for the Jews, and for the Jews to have the zechus of overcoming this temptation. And finally, specifically in regards to the Egyptians, I saw an explanation that at one point the Egyptians, who were always people who were full of zima, immorality, that at one point they got better, and that point was after Yosef, who was very careful to stay away from immorality, when they saw how that precious, that separation from immorality, elevated him, and the Jews who came down to Egypt were in a high position, so they wanted to emulate, and at one point they improved. However, eventually they saw that these same Jews eventually became slaves, and they said, well, if this is what someone who's moral ends up getting, I don't want to be moral, I'm going to go the other direction, and the Egyptians became worse. Switching to Shabbos Hagadol, Rav Yonason Eibschutz says there's a distinction between the word rum and the word gadol. Something that's rum, something that's on high, that means it's at a certain plateau, high level, like a bird. It flies at a certain height, but it doesn't fill in the gap between where it is and down below to earth. But something that's gadol, something that's physically or otherwise big, that fills up the whole height, including up to, say, where the bird is, but it also goes back down to the ground. So that's the difference between rum and gadol. So the difference between the Jews, the Ovdei Kachavim, the ones who serve Avodah Zarah, even the ones that believe that there is a God, and they say this God is high, he's in heaven, and he doesn't pay attention to what's going on down on earth below. However, the Jews, we say that Hashem is gadol, he's great, that he's on high, and he's paying attention to exactly what we're doing down below. And that was part of the rebellion of the Tower of Babel, that they thought that God was staying above, and they're trying to reach up to where he was above as a ram, not as a gadol who's paying attention down below. And we disagree, and we of course say that no, Hashem is down below too, paying attention to every action that we do. And when Yisro became realized he had made a mistake, he says, "Atal yidati ki gadol Hashem called him." That Hashem, he said that now I know that God is gadol, greater than all the other gods, because he thought that no, God doesn't pay attention below, but actually he realized no, God does pay attention also below. And Losisa Shem Hashem Elokecha Lashav can be interpreted as do not elevate Hashem above to be on that rum level falsely, like the Avodah Zarah do, saying that Hashem does not pay attention down below. You think you're getting the pattern, but we say that Hashem is, we're not misnaseh Hashem in that respect. We say Hashem is paying attention below, and it's on this very Shabbos, says Rav Yonason Eibschutz, that we had a resolution between the battle where we're saying that Hashem took us out of Egypt, he came down below to us, and he was gadol for us, and therefore it's a Shabbos Hagadol, not like the Gentiles. So I hope you have a great Shabbos Hagadol and a wonderful Pesach, and see you in a few weeks. Thanks. Have a great Yontiv, great Shabbos, everything. Thank you for listening.